I gave people all the stuff they really needed. Social Security checks, utility bills, TV guide.
I want a TV guidance counselor. TV guidance counselor. Staying up to watch all night, and everything's gonna be alright with my TV guidance counselor.
Hey everybody, welcome to TV Guidance Counselor. I am Ken Reid, as always, your TV Guidance Counselor, and this is the show where each and every week since February 2014, Valentine's Day in fact, I've welcomed an interesting person into my home, virtual home, or borrowed home to discuss classic television using back issues of TV Guide magazine from my personal collection as the inspiration for our conversation. And this week, my guest is fellow podcaster Brien Kielb. Brien is also a huge Ken Reid fan, predating the TV Guidance Counselor podcast. We talk about it here. Good dude. He is one of the co-hosts of the Meet Me at Applebees podcast, which is not about sickly sweet themed alcoholic drinks. It is instead about NASCAR to a degree. Very fun show. You can go to Instagram, Meet Me at Applebees, or he also sells racing shirts at Speedway Screens, has an Etsy store and all that. Put links in the show description. You can find it all there, but this is a fun conversation and you'll want to follow his work after you listen to it. You might even want to now. I think I sold it pretty well. I'm just that good. Anyway, hope you guys are doing well. Note the weather is a little bit nicer. The world is still on fire and everything's pretty terrible, but you know, small victories here. If there are podcasts that you like that you would like me to check out and to maybe have the hosts or on-air people on my show, I am happy to reach out to them and try to get them onto the show. Feel free to email me at ken@ikenreid.com or tvguidancecounselor@gmail.com or kenreidtvgc@gmail.com on all the social media and all that. Well, not all the social media. You can find it. Or you can go to patreon.com/TV Guidance Counselor. And if you gave $5 or more a month, you would have got a PDF of this very issue of TV Guide for you to look through, as well as access to the complete TV Guide archives that I've scanned thus far. Or if you want to request me to scan an issue, you can do that there too. But if you don't have that money, I understand too, because the world is terrible. Oh boy. Also, thanks all the people who shoot me a message and check in on me. I like hearing from you guys and I appreciate it. Anyway, on to the fun stuff. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of TV Guidance Counselor with the co-host of the Meet Me at Applebees podcast, Brien Kielb.
TV is my friend, and it has been always there for me in time of need.
Live via satellite from Cleveland, Ohio, Brien Kielb. How are you, sir?
I'm awesome, Ken. Glad to be here.
It is an audio-only podcast, but I have to describe to my listeners that you do have a Chuck E. Cheese hat, which is pretty solid.
This is actually a NASCAR hat. Chuck E. Cheese has some sort of deal with Hendrick Motorsports, which is like one of the biggest NASCAR teams, where they have like NASCAR related video games in Chuck E. Cheese's. Like they don't actually sponsor cars or anything, but that's why I have this.
That makes sense. And we were discussing before, you have a classic First Showcase Showdown t-shirt that you recently obtained as sort of a holy grail.
And speaking of Boston Punk.
Oh, wow. Wow. And where did you obtain? He's showing everybody the first 2 7-inches of the band I was in high school, 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, the all ages pie eating contest in a split 7-inch with the treble.
I've had these for a while. I mean, we were talking before we recorded. I've been a huge Boston Punk band. Like that's how I knew you before you were ever doing comedies or podcasts or anything like that. So,
which is hilarious to me.
Yeah,
like that's amazing.
Well, I figured I'd be in a short list of people that were both A, motorsports fans, or B, like Boston Punk fans that actually knew you from 30 Seconds Over Tokyo. So
I think there's 4 of you.
Yeah.
No, there's only one. But because you grew up in Albany, so like a lot of Boston bands would go like sometimes as far as Syracuse, but Albany was a frequent stop, and then you guys would drive to Boston, you were saying?
Yeah, all the time.
I'm trying to think of where we played in Albany.
You definitely played Valentine's. That was probably, it was there, and then you guys were probably around for the end of QE2, which that was Albany's other big like punk and hardcore club.
Yes.
It's still Valentine's is gone, but QE2 is still around. in like a different form now. I think it's called the Fuse Box still, but it's had a few different owners, and they still do shows there here and there. So
I'm trying to think of Albany bands we played with. Were the Schismatics from Albany?
Trauma School Dropouts is probably the big one.
I can't remember. I was just in Albany recently with Todd Barry. We did we did the mall, the Funny Bones in the mall.
Oh, that's right. They have I go back to Albany like once, twice a year, and it's funny how like there's both there, and there was a musical venue in the mall also that I think closed at this point.
There probably is. It was really weird. I don't know if people have been to, I guess Funny Bones is a chain of comedy clubs, and they're mostly in malls. And the one in Albany was kind of like a normal mall. The one in Syracuse was in this insane mall called Destiny USA. I don't know if you're familiar.
No, I've never been there.
So it was, it's mall talk, everybody. We'll get to the, we're making mall talk. But it was, and there's a NASCAR connection here. So Syracuse, which is kind of run down economically. I think it was a big manufacturing town. Clearly hasn't been in years. Used to have a lot of, if not oil production, like oil refinement, or like it was like a place where the trucks would get filled with oil and then go places. So all that disappeared. So these giant oil fields, I guess like 30 years ago, they decided they were going to build a mall that was to rival the Mall of America. So it like lost money, and they ran out of money at various times. So it's sort of 40% built, and then it was like 70% built. So it's this massive mall. It's like 4 stories. There's a zoo inside it.
Oh God.
There's like zip lines across the ceilings. There's all kinds of crazy stuff. There's a full-size NASCAR branded go-kart track.
Oh yeah, I've seen those. We see the Albany Mall, Cross Gates, which is I think maybe where you performed.
Yeah, that was what it was.
In the early 2000s, they had one of those. NASCAR had a chain of like video game simulators where you'd sit in like a little car and it would kind of move around on the screen and stuff. And it was very expensive, so I only did it a couple times. But that was only lasted a couple years. I want to say something like that.
So I was also mentioning before we started recording that I was moving some stuff around in my basement, and I found so Dale Earnhardt Jr. was on the cover of TV Guide.
Oh yeah.
And I have the original photo without the trade dress and all that from the TV Guide, like framed in a thing, which you are welcome to have.
Yeah, I might take you up on that.
So let me know. So I've never been to Cleveland. I have many friends there. It seems like a pretty cool place.
That's surprising. I mean, Cleveland is a lot like Albany, which is one of the reasons why I feel at home here. I was living in Pittsburgh for a minute in 2014, but I was spending so much time here. And it's got that similar like working class vibe of Albany, but it's also a real city with real stuff going on, which is, why I like it. So, I love it here. It's definitely a really cool city. I mean, I'd love to get you out here to do comedy at some point.
Oh, I'd love to make it out there. Yeah. Also, I recently learned that the world's largest off-grid prepper store is an hour south of Cleveland.
That makes sense. Knowing how the rest of the state is, that absolutely makes sense. Like Cleveland, I don't even really consider it the Midwest. I mean, it's technically the Midwest, being in Ohio, but Cleveland itself is just it's its own place. There's only a few cities in this state that kind of feel that way. Like Columbus is another one of them, and maybe Cincinnati to a lesser extent. But this state is very red when you go south at all. So.
Well, it's funny because that store, it's been there for like 60 years because it exists. I mean, I can't remember the name, but it exists in the nexus between like militias and Amish. It's like a perfect place for that to be. They're like awesome. But there's plenty of cool stuff out there. What's the number one like local cuisine? Is that would be like ultimate Cleveland food?
Well, Polish food is big here. Pierogies are big here.
Pittsburgh,
the po' boy, which is like a kielbasa with like slaw on it. Those are really good. We have our own pizza spots, but yeah, it's a lot of like Polish and ethnic food. Really.
Yeah, which is fine with me.
Yeah.
Albany was beef on weck, or was that buffalo? It was a buffalo thing.
Oh God, I don't know.
It's really weird. It's like a roast beef sandwich on like a salty pretzel bun.
Definitely not an Albany thing because I would have had those before.
Yeah, they're
for
good.
Sure.
They're good.
Yeah.
So anyway, you do a NASCAR podcast.
Yeah, it's called Meet Me at Applebee's, which is very funny. We based that name off of there's a NASCAR driver named Mike Harmon who is a very colorful guy who's had a weird career. And a couple of years ago, like we were trying to think of a name, and I came to this. A few years ago on Twitter, he got into a wreck with one of Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s drivers, and the driver called him an idiot in his post-race interview. So he went on Twitter and challenged him to a fight at the Applebee's down the street from the track.
That is a good place to fight.
Yeah, so that's where the name comes from, and yeah, we mainly do NASCAR, but we do like cover all sorts of motorsports. My co-hosts are based out of Atlanta and Worcester, Mass, and it's just a fun thing. We're not like trying to be NASCAR journalists like a lot of people who do this type of content. Like it's really just a way for us to bullshit and talk about racing and make a lot of jokes too. We're pretty lighthearted with the show, yeah, I don't know. What else do you want to know?
The best podcasts, I find, the topic is a enthusiastic excuse to have a conversation. That's kind of what you have.
That was really it. I mean, I was just kind of looking for some. I'd wanted to do a racing podcast forever, and for the longest time, I wanted to do something where I kind of review old races and old videos and stuff, and that is a component of the show. But yeah, they're just friends I've had for a long time, and I was looking for something to do when they were into it. And we're on our third year now. We're just about to hit episode 100.
Oh, nice! Congratulations.
You know, we don't have a massive audience, but we have started to gain some following, and again, it's all for fun.
Yeah.
You know, the NASCAR world is very odd. In the sense
you don't
that,
say.
Yeah, it's odd in the sense that, I mean, everybody knows it's traditionally a Southern sport with pretty conservative fan base, but none of us are like that. You know, it's definitely something where, especially on Twitter, you know, we encounter a lot of, you know, red fans and racists and conservatives, and it's the one place that I will be outspoken about my political beliefs, and I've actually gotten questioned about this before, like why I do that, and I feel like it's good to be a representative of the sport that, like,
of course,
welcomes diversity, and I've gained a pretty big fan base. In addition to the podcast, I also sell vintage racing apparel and collectibles and stuff like that, and you know, I've been doing that for a long time. And I really try to go out of my way to reach out to those people and be one of those people because, you know, the sport needs to grow. It has been on a incline again after kind of being at a low point for, you know, it was at its height in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s. Had a decline after, you know, the 2008, you know, the mortgage crisis and all that stuff, and has been back on the up and up the last few years. And they've done a lot to encourage diversity. Unfortunately, with the election, they've kind of gone back on some of those things. Like Trump came to the Daytona 500, and I think they had John Schneider. It was weird. They had John Schneider from Dukes of Hazzard, who he's a very very drunk racist asshole. Yep. Then they also had Morgan Freeman as the like honorary starter of the race. It was a very odd dichotomy.
Very strange.
So, yeah.
How did you get into that though? Like, is it huge in Albany?
Well, I would say it's more. It was kind of a slow build. My entire family growing up were into motorsports. My grandfather and my uncles were really into motorcycle racing, and I also had an aunt that was into dirt track racing. Like right outside of Albany, there's one of the best dirt tracks in New York, like 15 minutes from my house. So I was going there 3, 4, 5 years old. Also, being that I'm 41, I was at the exact right age for the monster truck craze.
Yeah.
Loved monster trucks in the 80s and 90s. That's another big component of my t-shirt collection. I've got like a couple hundred vintage monster truck shirts that I collect. So it was kind of a natural progression. When Days of Thunder came out, I saw that in the theaters at 6 years old. And then from there, like, it just kind of built up. And yeah, I mean, I've been a fan now for the majority of my life, really.
So I know nothing about the different racing, and I know one of them's like a speed thing, and one of them's like an endurance thing, right? Is that fair to say?
No, not really. I mean, NASCAR, as far as, you know, the big motorsports go, the races tend to be the longest. I mean, the Cup Series races are anywhere from 2.5 to 4 hours long if there's no rain delays or anything like that. The lower tier series, you know, they're anywhere from 1.5 hours to 3 hours. You know, Formula One, which I am not a fan of at all, they cap their races at 2 hours no matter what's going on. But yeah, there are like sports car races that'll go up to like 24 hours, which I'll watch those occasionally, but they switch off drivers and things like that.
Because I'm always like, if you're driving around a track for 4 hours, you win if you don't pee yourself.
Well, that's a funny thing you mentioned, because that's one of those questions drivers always get asked. And last year, there's one of the top stars of NASCAR is a guy named Denny Hamlin. He co-owns a team with Michael Jordan. And he has a podcast every week where he's very in-depth about the sport and what goes on in his races. Last year, he did an episode where he talked about peeing in the car for the first time and how he kind of liked it, which is very odd.
So that's like an unspoken thing?
Oh, yeah, it definitely happens. Not that often, but occasionally it does happen. I know Dale Earnhardt Jr. has talked about it to where, if he has had to do it, a lot of times he would wear white uniforms, depending on his sponsors. So what he would do is, if he did it, he would have somebody bring over a bottle of Gatorade and he'd pour it on himself when he got out of the car, just to make sure nobody could tell.
I just want to point out, I'm not a huge sports guy, but if there was any other sport where there was, what would you say is accurate? A 25% chance that the winner's going to have pissed themselves during the game? I couldn't even imagine.
There's Tony Stewart. He's another NASCAR star. In late 2000s, he won a race at Watkins Glen after shitting himself.
Nice.
It was one of those deals where he got to victory lane and didn't do an interview. They basically let him get out of the car and go change and everything. And then afterwards, any photo you see, nobody's anywhere near that car.
Well, that was a woman, Uda Pipping, who won the Boston Marathon one year. She had an accident before she crossed the finish line.
Yeah, that's a common thing. I mean, aside from being a racing guy, I've been in the bicycle industry most of my life.
I was going to say, I'm very into poop.
No, definitely not. So that's one of those things that happens in cycling too, in marathons. And I can't tell you how many times I've had riders bring their bikes in and there's crystallized piss in the seat and down tube and stuff, and it's just gross.
Do you remember the band The Boyles?
Yeah.
Greg, who I haven't talked to in years, but was always incredibly funny. He had a 30 Seconds shirt. It was the black one with the album cover one. And I hadn't run into him. And this was before I started doing comedy. And I was like, oh, you still got that shirt? He goes, dude, the shirt saved my ass. And I was like, what happened? He goes, I was mountain biking through the woods and I shit myself. And I had to use it to wipe.
But did he still have it?
He still had it, yeah.
Oh, man.
It'd been laundered, but he was very proud of this. I guess that's a quality shirt.
Yeah, it held up to that for sure. Speaking of bands and racing and stuff, I did want to bring this up too. Obviously, you have to remember Blank 77.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So I am friends with Mike Blanks because of NASCAR. I don't know if he was a fan back when you knew him.
Not that I recall.
So 2004, I think, is when they got back together. And my friends and I went to the city to see him. And during the set, I saw he was wearing a Jeff Gordon belt buckle. And I just yelled up the NASCAR punks at him. And he stopped mid-set to talk to me in the crowd about racing. And that developed a friendship to where, I got them to play Albany a bunch of times. They played our friend Josh's wedding reception.
Oh, wow.
And to this day, we'll text each other about races and stuff. So,
yeah, I haven't seen Mike in years. I always talk to Renee more often for whatever reason.
I talked to Renee, too, a little bit, especially when it was last year. I saw everybody from Showcase except for Ping Pong. They played a little not a reunion, but I mean they played just practice together, and I was reaching out to Mike and Renee about that because they're big Showcase people too. And Ping Pong just will not come out of retirement.
Yeah, Albert was like, that's all I'm doing. This is the band. That's it.
Yeah, Mike offered to sing, but they're like, we won't do it unless Albert does it.
Yeah,
so.
He's a key element there.
For sure.
Yeah. I've oddly talked about them on the show before, how funny those people were. Like Tom, who was the guitar player, he used to do a funeral party every year. Have you heard of these things that he did?
No.
So he would, for his birthday, he would rent a casket. And it would be set up like a wake, he's in the casket and everything. And people would come in and they'd do everything like he did at a wake.
Oh, you know what? Wasn't that, that was the cover of one of their 7 inches.
It is, there is a photo, yeah. Yes, and then he'd be like, I'm not dead. And then everyone would be like, woo, they'd have a big party. And then he'd go and put on this pink gorilla suit and then come out and then it was very strange. It was very, very strange.
Yeah.
I always thought Mike Blank looked a bit like David Leisure.
Where is he from? That name's... Oh, yeah. He was the Isuzu guy, right?
Yes, Joe Isuzu.
Okay, yeah, that's it. Yep, yeah.
He, at the time, at least, very Joe Isuzu.
Yeah, I can see that a little bit.
Yeah. So you picked an issue here. This one is not punk rock or NASCAR on the cover. This is Mr. Michael Jackson on the cover, and this is a weird cover because when you look at the titles here, and this one's also from Lincoln, Nebraska, just two of my major collection pieces. One was from Portland, Maine, and one was from Lincoln, Nebraska. It says exclusive Jay Arsenio feud goes bananas.
Yeah, that was an interesting article. I did not... I mean, obviously, we all know about the Jay and David Letterman and Conan stuff, but I didn't recall this at all.
Arsenio got pretty much left out of that, but he was in the mix for sure. Also, odd use of goes bananas. I feel like that anytime someone uses goes bananas, it's very intentional.
Yeah, you really could have picked a better phrase there for that, I think.
Yeah, because then on the other side, it says, is the TV movie on the Jackson family a whitewash? So it's like, what vaguely racist headlines can I put on the cover of this TV guide?
Yeah, definitely different times for sure.
Yeah.
Then
on the back cover, we got our Virginia Slims ad with a very jaunty young woman with two paint cans. And it has in quotes, so I assume this is supposed to be hers having said this. If you're trying to change things, the best place to start is in your own backyard. You come a long way, baby. I don't know what paint or that has anything to do with cigarettes.
I do know my mom smoked those, so
Slims?
You would think. Yeah, I mean, she smoked all the different women's cigarettes, which is a weird thing to think about, being like women-specific cigarettes.
Yeah, they would make them a little more feminine, long, and then the ads. I mentioned this before too. The ads that were specifically for women's cigarettes up until like the 80s would often be like, "Helps you stay slim, helps you lose weight."
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, that's okay. Then we get Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. It's got the big thing here. We don't have to mention that movie because we've already mentioned the terrible thing in it. The Ask TV guide is always funny to me because this is pre-internet. So these are burning questions people needed to know so badly. They wrote them down, mailed them in, and then checked the guide every week just in case they got an answer.
See, I just saw the Alf one. I didn't even look at the one above it about the AT&T commercials jingle, which is very funny.
Could you imagine being that upset about not knowing the answer to this? This is the question, everybody. There's this amazing song about calling you on the new AT&T commercials. Where have I heard that before? They don't even say what is it. Like, they have to word it. Like, I mean, I know it. I just need a reminder. And it's from the movie Baghdad Cafe. It's the theme calling you. But then it doesn't tell us who performed it.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like, that's a crucial part of the information there. I mean, I guess if you can go find the soundtrack to that movie, but you can figure it out. But
it's like, why would you not include that, though? It's like, you want to save a few, like you were like, we don't want to give them all the answers. We need them right back so we have something to print in the future. Do NASCAR guys have theme music like wrestlers, like entry music?
They do at certain tracks. They'll do play out music, but they tend to switch it up every time. It's not like each driver has a specific song they'll come out to. So depending on the race or how they're feeling or how they're doing, they'll change their songs up.
I feel like monster trucks must have had their own theme songs.
Not so much that I can recall. I mean, I don't really go to too many shows anymore. I do know Gravediggers is Bad to the Bone by George Thorogood, and that to this day.
Of course it is.
But other ones I can't really think of.
I can only name probably two other monster trucks, obviously Bigfoot and then Truckosaurus.
I don't even think Truckosaurus was real. I think that was just a Simpsons reference because that's such a generic thing. There was like a couple different like robot type monster truck things.
Breathe fire and stuff.
Yeah, there was one called Vorian that was like a robot that talked, and then there was one that that you ate cars and breathed fire and stuff. And it was actually, I forget the name of it, but it was on Facebook for like $2 million recently.
Oh, I
So it
think
still
that
exists.
showed up on Pawn Stars.
Yeah, it was on Pawn Stars once too. They tried to get $1 million something for it there, and nobody was biting. So
Yeah, that's the one I remember seeing like advertised on TV at like the World of Wheels or like, you know, the Worcester Centrum or something.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Bigfoot cartoon?
Oh, that's I went on the Saturday morning cartoons and I did that episode. Like we talked about it. So yes, I'm very familiar. Although that was before my time. Like I was born in 83 and that cartoon was out in like 84, 85.
Yeah.
During the first wave of Bigfoot stuff. You know, I started watching Monster Trucks probably 88, 89. Like that's the first shows I went to.
There's a second Bigfoot cartoon though. There's one with a bunch of acclaimed video game things that aired during Video Power. Have you seen this?
That I don't think I have actually.
So it's I have to look it up. Do you remember the show Video Power?
No, I don't remember that at all.
So Video Power was a weekly Monday through Friday, like sort of after school show. It had 2 iterations. It was hosted by a guy who went by the name Johnny Arcade. But speaking of Polish, his real name was Stivy Paninsky.
Oh my god!
And it was amazing. Like I remember just seeing Stivy Paninsky in the credits. So the first season was like a Saved by the Bell-ish almost sitcom setup where he was like the Zach, and he'd come home after school and play video games and like give you hot tips and all this stuff. And they had like a short every day. It was like an ongoing strip cartoon, and it was Acclaim video games. It was like all of their video game people. So it was like King Hippo and Bigfoot and like this. It was like a 7-Up dot, but it was all these characters that no one cared about. It was like none of the Nintendo characters people had heard of, and they were like a power team that like solved mysteries and stuff. And
Oh, man.
awful.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
I think Bigfoot talked.
Yeah, that makes sense. The Bigfoot NES game was awful. It was so hard to play because like there were 2 different modes. One that was kind of like, I'm not much of a video game person, but it was kind of like we would drive through like a mud pit, and it was almost like a scrolling type. But then the other one, you do like drag races, and you had to just hit the controller buttons like back and forth as fast as you could, and it was the biggest pain in the ass.
Yeah,
to
that's
play
not
as a kid.
fun. There's no skill to
it
that.
was not.
I'll have to dig up some Video Arcade clips of this Acclaim thing. The show was a huge bomb, but they had purchased 2 seasons of this show. So they were like, all right, we got to retool it. So the second season was basically a ripoff of the show Funhouse with J.D. Roth. If you remember that show. Sort of Double Dare, sort of Finders Keepers or whatever. It was a full-on game show. And if you won, and like you'd have to compete in like video game rounds, you went through this prize arcade, and you went through with a suit, a Velcro suit, and all these like video games and like power gloves and all this stuff. You would have to grab them and like put them on, like Velcro them to your suit, and then at the end come down this slide in like a minute or whatever, and you got to keep whatever stuck to your suit.
Okay, that is vaguely bringing up some memories, but yeah, I can't say I totally remember that one.
It had an amazing, terrible theme song that was like, it was Johnny Arcade. Hold on, I have to look up what that cartoon was. Hold on, Video Power, Bigfoot. The Power Team was the name of the group, and the Power Team consisted of Max Force from the game Narc. No,
I do remember that game in the arcade. I remember seeing that.
Kuros from Wizards and Warriors.
Nope.
Quick from the eponymous Game Boy title.
Nope.
Tyrone from Arch Rivals, and Bigfoot.
What a weird crew.
It's so weird. But the theme song was like, feel the power. And then Johnny Arcade would be like, video power. It was terrible. Oh, good old Stivy Paninsky. I've tried to find Stivy Paninsky and have him on the show because I'd love to talk to Stivy Paninsky. And you would think someone with a name like Stivy Paninsky would be easy to find.
Yeah.
Nope. Completely disappeared. So if
Damn.
anyone knows Stivy Paninsky, wants to put me in touch with him, please do. But you got to watch The Power Team. I'd love to see what you think of it. Yes, then we get a question about Alf because the show had ended. I don't even think I mentioned what issue. We have November 14th, 1992 is the issue that we're doing here. And then this one is what's the most expensive commercial ever produced. So this is as of 1992. I'm sure this has been blown away since then.
Oh, absolutely.
Madonna's 1989 $5 million Like a Prayer spot for Pepsi before it was deemed too offensive.
Yeah, that being that I was 6 then, I do not remember that at all.
And I don't know this one. Non-celebrity honors go to Anheuser-Busch's $1.8 million animated Ultimate Sports Bar. I do not remember that at all.
I'm sure I've seen it just because, especially like I watch a lot of old races and stuff with all the commercials, and I'm sure I've seen it, but yeah, it doesn't ring a bell either.
Then we get to what I watch, and I always say there's no middle ground on this. It's either completely shocking or it's exactly what you thought this person watched. And it's Hugh Hefner.
Yeah, this was a funny thing. And actually I have kind of an odd connection with this. So I know in the past you've asked your guests, were you a TV Guide family or a newspaper pullout family? And I was neither, because much like Hugh Hefner here, so where my house was located, we didn't have cable. Like I say I grew up in Albany, but I actually grew up in a small town called East Greenbush, which was just across the river from Albany. It's one of the last exits on 90 when you're coming into town. And I lived in a very rural part of town that we did not have cable access. Like it didn't come to my road. So when my stepdad moved in, who I should also say this, when my mom and stepdad were dating, one of the ways that he kind of connected with us was he would make VHS mixtapes of our favorite shows.
Nice.
And when he moved in, he's a big sports guy and loves watching TV and stuff. Since we couldn't get cable, we ended up getting one of those big, like 10-foot satellite dishes that moved, to switch channels. So we had this guide that was like a 3-inch thick magazine.
Yep, it was the cable satellite guide because it would have like coordinates, right?
Yeah. So like we had access to all sorts of stuff most people couldn't watch, but me and Hugh Hefner had similar TV watching habits, I guess. Yeah,
the satellite dish was sort of strictly the realm of divorced dads, so that tracks with the stepdad. Because it was just a Wild West, because you literally could just pull anything from any satellite with these things. So you would see like unedited news footage, and so this sounds silly to people younger than us, but sort of pre-internet, the way that they would often get footage to like syndicated markets instead of mailing them a tape or like news stories is they'd broadcast it like a micro broadcast, and then they'd tape it on the other end. So you could cut into like raw footage of news, like just insane things. You never knew what you were going to pull in with those things. And yeah, he says he has 3 satellite dishes. I like that he goes, it's impossible to really know how many channels I can get.
It's true. I mean, there were so many out there, and especially too with the older ones, you had to almost fine tune sometimes to get a clear picture. I know, for instance, we would watch The Simpsons on CBC because they showed it at like 4:00 in the afternoon. So it was before anybody else in syndication would show it. So I definitely remember like seeing a lot of Jono-Vision commercials and random like folk artists and different weird things from CBC days.
Yeah, you would get foreign stuff. Yeah, I always wanted to get a satellite dish. Obviously, we didn't. They also usually went with above ground pools. I don't know if there was like a 2-for-1 thing.
We had an above ground pool.
They always went together. I don't know why. But yeah, so he watches his satellite dish with his brass buttons, which is kind of amazing. We get a review of Coach in here, a show that I'm not in love with. I forget if he liked this. This is Jeff Jarvis. He seems to like the ensemble cast, but he kind of says, this is all right.
Well, I have a Coach note, but we'll get to it later.
Okay.
In the listing there.
So then we get this awful Michael Jackson story, sort of just history of Michael Jackson, why people think he's weird, because there's a made-for-TV tell-all movie that's airing that week, which is why that's on there. And then we get an article about one of the biggest flops in television history, the unofficial last season of the Golden Girls, Golden Palace.
Yeah, I don't remember this at all. Like, I love the Golden Girls, but I don't remember this even a little bit.
Nobody watched this. So they basically didn't want to cancel the show. B. Arthur was like, I'm done. I don't want to be on the show anymore. So they sort of retooled the show with the other 3 Golden Girls. I forget how they wrote out B. Arthur, but essentially they buy a hotel and run this hotel in Miami. Don Cheadle was on the show.
Oh, weird.
Which is very strange. It's not good. It's not good. There's also, this is really weird, and I don't know why this is in here. There's like an iambic pentameter poem.
Yeah, that was awful. Like, truly awful.
I've never seen, this is not like a regular feature. I've never seen this in a TV guide. They give it no introduction or like context. It just says Rhyme of the Ancient Channel Surfer by Roger Euman. And it's like a almost full page poem. And it's terrible.
Well, this whole article is about the older audience and how, like, advertisers and stuff are kind of leaning towards going after them. And one quote that I actually found very prophetic was the economic power, they're talking about the baby boomers, the economic power will grow as the great mass of baby boomers move towards retirement age. Like, speaking of, those of us younger would have the power eventually, which is not true. The baby boomers still have all the money. Yeah. So,
but they realize they don't spend it. So that's the interesting thing, seeing the shift. So this is 92. This is a couple years before they discovered tweens, which they figured out that teenage girls and tween girls actually have the most influence and most disposable income in a weird way. So started directly marketing to them because, like, famously, Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman had massive ratings, but they canceled it because the people watching it were old people. So they were like, you don't count, which is really weird. Then there's a cool thing about TV disclaimers. So, the show you're about to watch is fiction. Those kind of things we would have before them. Little thing there. And then, I know you're not a video game guy, but do you remember the controversy around the Sega CD Night Trap game?
Yes. Yeah. Well, wait, Mousetrap game?
Night Trap.
Night Trap. See, I'm trying to think. I had a Sega, but we never had the Sega CD. I pretty much went from, I had an NES, Genesis, and then straight to PlayStation.
Okay.
And I vaguely remember when the CD stuff came out, but I don't remember any controversy. I'm assuming it was probably an adult-themed game or something, right?
It kind of wasn't. That was the weirdest thing. So it was a game called Night Trap, and it's not the best game. It was sort of like an interactive horror movie. So the concept was you were like a security guard and there was a house full of like co-eds on a sleepover and there were these sort of vampires attacking them all. So you had a bank of like all the monitors and you could hit buttons to trap the vampire guys before they got to these girls. But like you had to know which, you had to keep an eye on all the things. And when you pull up the monitor, it was like an actual filmed scene. And Dana Plato from Different Strokes was in it. But they were like, this is so violent. And if you go on YouTube, there's like all the video from Night Trap is up there. And it's so silly. Like the vampires look like the putties from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And they don't even suck blood. They have these like guns with a hoop on them that they put around their neck and they go like, oh, it's the dumbest thing. And this was literally, they're like, they're gonna kill people watching this thing, and sort of this article sort of about that. I also realized that Sega CD cost $300.
Yeah, it was very expensive and didn't really go very far because I think within a couple years of this, like PlayStation and N64 N64, they all popped up and Sega CD was out the window. The
funny thing they say here too is that, so they say 97 vampires attack a few co-eds in a slumber party and you've got to stop the carnage. And then it says a typical video game premise. So no problem with that. But then they go, but rather than silly little computer gremlins, Night Trap features digitized video footage of real people, including former Different Strokes star Dana Plato, rest in peace. The distinction is far more striking than it sounds, and it elevates the dramatic effect. So because it's video.
Yeah, looking at this screenshot, I mean, it looks like such an elementary game compared to anything that's out there.
Oh, and
today.
it's barely video. Yeah, like it doesn't even register. I also love that one of the other things they thought they were going to have that would be huge are these interactive music video CDs. Where you could like edit your own music video. And the two they released, the two were Crisscross and CNC Music Factory.
Oh, and NXS.
NXS, I believe, never came out.
Oh,
I think
okay.
they were like, well, yeah, we got to line up at least 3 because these are going to be huge sellers. And they were like, wait a minute, you're telling me the CNC Music Factory make your own music video was a massive hit? Apparently not. Then there's a monster truck on that same page, actually.
Yeah, I was very judgmental because that's a really shitty toy. It's one of the RC cars that's still connected by a cable, which those were the worst ones.
What's the point?
Yeah, exactly. It'll go 4 feet away from you, and then you got to turn back around.
Yeah, I mean, it probably eats 19 C batteries in 4 minutes as well.
Yep.
I don't even know if they sell C batteries anymore. Then where are we here? So and then this wonderful American Indian Heritage Foundation Museum proudly presents its first ever collector plate.
Yeah, that is maybe not this one in particular, but these types of plates are like a thrift store and flea market staple.
Oh yeah, you can't give them away.
No.
This thing was $29.50, and listener, this is hideous. This is one of the worst ones I've ever seen. This is an original work of art by internationally acclaimed Western artist Paul Kael. And it's...
I was given a couple like NASCAR ones as gifts over the years, and they're the stupidest things to own.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they're really awful.
They're not... Like, I don't understand why they're on a plate. Like, why aren't they just a painting or something?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, a plate's not necessarily easier to display than a painting of the same size as a plate.
No, if you want to hang them on the wall, you have to get like special mounts and stuff. It's stupid.
And you can't eat off them. They're not food safe. So like there's no reason for these to be plates.
Well, I mean, this just kind of reminds me too of like the NASCAR collector boom in the 90s. That when the sport was really at its biggest, limited edition items would be like runs of 10,000, like die-cast cars or cards or whatever. And everybody back then, and I've talked to so many fans and stuff over the years, like we thought this stuff would be worth tons in 30 years. And now all that shit can be found at flea markets for next to nothing.
Oh yeah.
Like,
anything made to be a collectible, and correct me if I'm wrong, listeners, but there is not a single example of those being worth anything.
No.
What's the weirdest NASCAR collectible that you've encountered?
Whew, that's tough because there's so much junk floating around. I've seen like NASCAR themed, like singing Billy Basses, duck calls. There was a line of fish. This company called Winter Circle in the 2000s put out like 6-inch long, like metal and plastic fish that were painted up like race cars.
Okay,
like, just
so they were
insane
like specific
stuff.
Cars.
Yeah, but they're painted like as a fish. Like, who wants this? Like, what is this good for? Die-cast cars and stuff I can understand, but it's so much shit out there that it's hard to really pick one item.
That sounds like a loophole to me. Like they were like, well, they have contracts where you can't make anything that looks like a car, with the logos and stuff. What if we did fish? Because the guy probably had like a fishing lure company or something.
Well, no, this company was like one of the biggest diecast producers. They produced everything when it came to NASCAR stuff, like diecast cars and toys and
Weird.
stuff. So yeah, to have this line of painted fish was just bizarre.
Because I always think the collector plates was like some dude had a warehouse full of blank plates and was like, I don't know, put Elvis on them. Then we get the thing about Arsenio Hall. Like it says, Arsenio spurns peace talks with Leno, quote, I was in hell.
Yeah, this whole article, like I did read this too, and it's funny they had the responses to each other in here. And then there's stuff about David Letterman, of course.
Yeah, this was heated.
Yeah. And speaking of heated too, I was not a Murphy Brown watcher. I mean, granted, I was a child, but I do remember all the controversy about her being like a single working mother having a child. And we see a column about that. And it's so odd how serious people took this back then.
It was ridiculous. It was because Dan Quayle weighed in on it. So that was the strange thing.
That's
like,
right. Yeah.
This, again, will sound quaint and ridiculous, but the fact that the vice president weighed in on the plot line of a TV sitcom was, like, outrageous.
Mm-hmm. If we could only go back to that time when those types of things actually mattered, we'd be in a much better place.
Yeah. And he came out looking like such an idiot for it, which, it should have. But yeah, now this is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So then where are we here? Getting into the listings. You want to start on Saturday?
Well, there's one thing I want to talk about in the at a glance section, because it's not going to come up in the rest of the stuff. Sure. In the music section, Alabama salutes Richard Petty. We'll get into it when we talk about the race, but this was Richard Petty's retirement weekend, and this was a 3-hour special taped at like the Georgia Dome.
Yep.
I actually have it on right now. There is a one of my favorite YouTube channels it's called NASCAR Man, and it's a guy who does a lot of video essays about different obscure racing stories and things like that. And he also digs up a lot of old footage and posts it. And he has the entire 3-hour broadcast with commercials on his channel. So I have it playing in the background right now as we're watching.
That's amazing. Yeah, this is Alabama Salutes Richard Petty. The Country Quartet honors the stock car legend Saturday in a live Nashville Network concert at Atlanta's new Georgia Dome. Also performing Joe Diffie, Lori Morgan, and Ricky Van Shelton. None of those people have I heard of.
I am someone who listened to a lot of 90s country, so I'm pretty familiar. Yeah. I part of the NASCAR thing, I guess. True. Like my dad was really into 90s country and old stuff, and even my grandfather too was really into old country. So I listened to a lot of that stuff.
I will say 90s country a million times better than anything that's come out in the 21st century.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, it even then, a lot of old artists didn't consider 90s country to be real country, right. But I mean, compared to anything coming out today, forget it.
Oh yeah, like Travis Tritt, Reba McEntire, Garth Brooks, kind of stuff, right? It would be like, they were like, that ain't real, which is fair enough because those country guys were like, I shot 48 men and I've been dead 7 times from alcohol poisoning, whatever it was. Real Chris Christopherson stuff. So you've heard of Joe Diffie.
Yeah, Joe Diffie, he did John Deere Green. He wrote a bunch of songs about trucks. He actually...
I like that you felt the need to say that.
I'm just trying to think of his one truck song that I really... Oh, Pickup Man. That's a good song. And he actually, another NASCAR connection... one of my favorite drivers was a guy named Davey Allison, who he passed away in a helicopter crash in '93. His widow ended up dating Joe Diffie after he passed away.
Oh, you think Diffie was just waiting?
Who knows? I mean, he was definitely around NASCAR at that point, so it could have been.
Are there any former NASCAR drivers who tried to have music careers?
Not that I can think of. Exact reverse, though. Marty Robbins, who was a country star in the 60s and 70s, he actually raced NASCAR before he died. Exact reverse scenario there. But no, none. I think there's one younger guy who's like a SoundCloud rapper, but his dad is very rich, and he later got suspended the last couple years for I think a drug abuse violation. So
because I feel like was it Danica Patrick? Was that her name?
Yeah.
I feel like if she was as big as she was, like maybe 4 years later, she would have had put out a single or like all these kind of things.
Well. She, since she stopped racing, she is now both an F1 commentator that no one seems to like, and she is also now a conservative icon. She has gone the last year or two. She went from like kind of a new age yoga-ish type woman doing podcasts and stuff, and then this last election cycle, she just went totally conservative and started showing up at rallies and stuff. And recently, I saw a clip of her talking about how it's cool to be conservative now.
No,
so
that's the thing. Those sort of sad people, even if they're successful, they have something missing in their lives that they're like desperate for, like an answer. Mm-hmm. So they go with like all that new age stuff. Those are people that fall victim to like weird psychic surgeon things or whatever.
Yeah,
and it makes perfect sense that they land in that modern day conservative thing where it's just like, we have all the answers to all your problems. You're the victim here. And they're like, that's what it is. It's, it's because of wokeness that I have a hole in my heart. Then there's a thing called Project Overcoat here, which I had never heard of before, but it's celebrities who've donated coats and other wearables to help children with AIDS, and it's an auction.
Oh, wow.
And it's you call up a 900 number for this auction, and you don't know what it looks like, right? It's just, it has the celebrity as a code number, and you bid on whatever they donated. And this list of celebrities is just amazing. It's Whoopi Goldberg, Candice Bergen, Oprah Winfrey, Bette Midler, Gloria Estefan, Lonnie Anderson, Lindsay Wagner, Ruby Dee, Jacqueline Zayman, I don't know who that is, Melanie Griffith, Brooke Shields, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Kathy Lee Gifford, Lisa Hartman Black, Elizabeth Taylor, Penny Marshall, Gina Davis, Roseanne and Tom Arnold, Steve Grogan, here's a weird one, Oliver Stone, Rob Reiner, Michael J. Fox, Tim Allen, Phil Collins, John Forsythe. There's a whole other list there too, like Raymond Burr, Stephen King, Jay Leno, Michael Jordan.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like big names in here.
Alice Cooper, Michael Bolton.
Just one that says there's a couple script ones like Celtics basketball. Like what the hell could that be? A jersey or something?
I like how I imagine. So there's supposed to be coats. I'm gonna research this going forward. I want to see what these look like. I'm going to text Tom Arnold and see if he remembers what the hell they donated.
Oh, there's not a chance. I mean, this was 92. This was prime Tom Arnold partying days.
Yeah, there's no way he remembers, but I'm sure he'll have a funny story about it. So then let's get into the listings here after these no doubt now illegal diet pill ads. So Saturday night, what are you doing?
All right, so this was Mountain Time, so the times are a little different. So I know we did 7 to 9. 7 o'clock, I am going with the Kids' Choice Awards on Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure I know I definitely was a Nickelodeon watcher at this point, and I love now as an adult watching like old time capsules like this. Like I've watched numerous old MTV, music and movie award shows and other random stuff that I can find. So this would definitely be up my alley for sure.
So this was 92. They'd been doing the Kids' Choice Awards for I think about 5 years, I want to say. Friend of the show, former guest comedian Chip Chantry, his brother won a contest and his family got to go to the first Kids' Choice Awards. So we went to it. But this one, Tori Spelling is hosting. This is an interesting year for Nickelodeon. So November 92, as we get into 93, I believe it was March 93 is when Nickelodeon launched Snick. So
I remember Snick.
They're sort of putting at 7 o'clock, the Kids' Choice Awards, or 8 o'clock in the Eastern time zone. That's like a very unusual thing for Nickelodeon because it always switched over to Nick at Night at 8 o'clock. So they were kind of toying with Saturday nights, having more Nickelodeon programming into the primetime hour. And so I think that putting the Kids' Choice Awards at this time was sort of their little see if we can make that work.
Yeah, because this is, I think I have Ren and Stimpy on at 8 o'clock, so that's one of my choices.
Yeah,
so that makes total sense.
Yeah, and they put the Nicktoons there. The Ren and Stimpy was airing simultaneously on MTV and Nickelodeon. Which is kind of amazing. There's a show called The Powers That Be, which I assume is a sitcom. And David Pierce is in it, who I assume is David Hyde Pierce. But in quotes, it just says, ventriloquism is tearing this family apart.
Wow, what a premise.
Theodore, played by David Pierce, volunteers to be the senator's dummy in a comedy act that the rest of the family and staff find embarrassing. Powers is played by John Forsythe. That sounds terrible. That's like a parody of a sitcom.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I want to look that up because going through these listings, like there's so many shows that I didn't remember or had never heard of. I've seen most of the classic, 80s and 90s sitcoms, but yeah, that's one that no recollection.
No
whatsoever.
recollection either. And this is the 92 season. This is like when a lot of these would get canceled before the mid-season replacements. I'm assuming Powers That Be didn't make it the whole season. And Sisters is on, which is a show about middle-aged sisters. And I watched it every damn week.
Cool. So 8 o'clock. There's actually a few different things on. On Fox, we've got the WWF main event. I was a big wrestling fan, especially at this point in time. So that's one thing I would be watching. But again, Ren and Stimpy's on at 8 on Nick. There's also Super Dave on Showtime, which I definitely would have been into that. And then also MTV Sports was on at 8:30. So I probably would have been flipping all between these shows. I don't remember. I mean, I remember MTV Sports as being just like a lot of random Dan Cortez like goes and checks out this sport and that sport. When doing a little research, I actually found a clip of this is going to shock you. My favorite band of all time, Primus, is they were on MTV Sports. They took Dan Cortez out fishing.
I remember that.
Yeah, which is funny because on there, a year later, they did a VHS tape called Cheesy Home Video, and they actually referenced this because they said they took MTV out one time and the waters were too choppy and they couldn't catch anything.
Because that was when they had an album called Sailing the Seas of Cheese, is that right?
Yeah, Sailing the Seas of Cheese was 91, so they were still kind of promoting that at that point.
That makes sense. It was funny. I used to buy like heavy metal magazines occasionally at this time because they would have guitar tabs in them. And this 92 was when heavy metal those magazines had no idea what to do anymore because of Nirvana. So it would be really weird. Like you'd have like Queensryche song and then like the tab for a Primus song and then like Killing Joke and what was the band with the chainsaw? Jackal. It was like that kind of stuff. So I remember Primus was like always in there where I was like, oh, so like metal dorks really like Primus for some reason.
Well, I mean, with Primus's history, the guitar player Lur, he was in a band called Possessed in the 80s before Primus, and they were like an early thrash pioneer. Like they're one of those bands that, if you're really into thrash, you've heard of them. They didn't get too big. And oddly enough, Les Claypool, he did he had a gig in a band called Blind Illusion, which were like a Bay Area thrash band that he only took the job because if he recorded the record, he was going to get a new amp out of it. This was just before Primus was starting to hit it big.
Nice. And this is before Winona's Big Brown Beaver, which was like the closest they got to a mainstream hit.
Yeah, we're still a few years away from that. Yep.
There is Saturday Night's Main Event used to always be on NBC in the Saturday Night Live slot. So Saturday Night Live's kind of deal was they'd do 3 new episodes a month, and then that 4th Saturday would be WWF Saturday Night's Main Event. And that was the case, I think, from 84 to 1990 or 91. So I think it had just moved to the Fox network recently, and it's weird to see it on at 8, 9 o'clock like that early is weird.
Which WWE has a deal with NBC now, and they've revived Saturday Night's Main Event, and just for the first time in decades, Jesse the Body Ventura came back and did commentary because Vince McMahon is no longer involved with the company.
Nor should he be.
No, definitely not.
And they still used Obsession by Animotion as the opening theme song, right? On the new one?
I didn't. So I don't watch WWE anymore, just because it's of all the things that have happened the last few years, and that just it's gotten awful. And there's also other wrestling that I watch. I got an AEW fan, like they're on TBS and TNT. Yep, there you go, RJ City.
Friend of the show.
Yep.
He's invited me to go to some of those when they hit Boston, and so I feel like I should go. I don't know anything about AEW. I forgot about the wrestler Papa Shango.
Oh yeah, see, he did a handful of different characters. Before that, I forget what his character was, and then after Papa Shango, he did like an MMA fighter type character that didn't go anywhere, and then later he became a bigger star when he was the Godfather, who was a pimp in the 90s. Okay. And
he's like, what's less offensive than me being a voodoo doctor?
He came to Cleveland and did an appearance at our local wrestling company called AIW. This was probably 6-7 years ago. And he came out and did the Papa Shango makeup. And I have a picture of me. He's choking me out, and I'm wearing an Ultimate Warrior shirt, which that was Papa Shango's big rival. So that's one of my favorite wrestling fandom pictures.
And see, I had kind of quit watching wrestling at this point, so I didn't know that Randy Savage had a tag team with the Ultimate Warrior called the Ultimate Maniacs.
Yeah, it was very short-lived because like in 92, like 91, 92, Ultimate Warrior left WWF, and then he came back for a brief period, but there were all these contract issues and him just being a weirdo. So I think by 93 he was gone again. And then he came back in 96 and again missed a bunch of shows and made all these excuses and stuff. And he was not a great person. I'm sure you know
I'm
this
shocked.
at this point.
Yeah, let me guess. Did he have a drug problem?
Not so much drugs, but he was just like, he came from a weightlifting background and he thought very highly of himself. And, him and Hulk Hogan had issues. Later on he became like kind of a right-wing character and his big quote was he appeared.
Just to tell the listener, I just fell off my chair.
He in the 2000s he tried to do a reality show where he basically yelled at a bunch of emo bands and made them lift weights and stuff, which is very funny. Like that's on YouTube. It definitely says a lot of slurs.
It's like a Mad TV sketch.
Yeah, it kind of is, but it's real. But no, in the 2000s, he was a weird right-wing pundit, and his big thing was he appeared at a college, and he said, "Queering don't make the world work." Exact phrase.
I've never heard it as a verb.
Yeah, well, he made it a verb.
I mean, that's kind of impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's past the purview, but because I always watch USA Up All Night and Saturday Nightmares, at 10 p.m. Friday the 13th Part 7 is on, which is a terrible Friday the 13th, but I 100% would have watched it. And Saturday Night Live that night is a new one. Michael Keaton is hosting with musical guest Morrissey.
Ooh, I'm sure Keaton was good, but yeah, I'm not a Morrissey guy at all.
Me either, but I remember watching that episode and Keaton was very good. I don't think I've ever watched Michael Keaton in anything where I've been like, not into it.
No, same. Everything I've ever seen him in, he's always been good.
Yeah, he's sort of carved out a career in the last few years. Like people thought that it was sort of a comeback with him playing Batman and the Flash and then the Beetlejuice 2. But he's been pretty consistently working in like action movies.
Well, I really liked him in that McDonald's movie.
Oh yeah, The Founder.
He was he was really good in that. I enjoyed that.
He's been like in like John Wick style action movies. Like
has he? Okay. I'm not a big action movie guy.
They're great. He's great in them though. Like he plays like a charming hired killer in like 10 movies.
Interesting.
And they're all very, very entertaining. Sunday, what are you doing?
So Sunday, the one thing we got to talk about that's not in prime time, and I guess the main reason for picking this episode, this guide, it's the 1992 Hooters 500, which this is the season finale.
You kind of said that title too quickly.
Oh, the 92 Hooters 500. Okay. This was so Hooters were just starting to become like a nationwide phenomenon, and part of it was because of NASCAR. In 91, they started sponsoring a driver named Alan Kawicki, who he was a completely independent driver. He did everything himself. He owned his own team. And in 92, there was a three-way battle going into this particular race between him, Bill Elliott, and Davey Allison, who I mentioned previously. And it was basically one of these three guys were going to win the championship. And Alan ended up winning by only a couple points, which never happens in NASCAR. It was a deal where Bill Elliott, who came in second in the points, he won the race, but Alan ended up leading the most laps, which got him enough bonus points to win the title. So he was the last fully independent NASCAR driver to win a championship. In addition to all those things, this was Richard Petty's last race, which he crashed out in. And it was also... Yep. And it was also Jeff Gordon's first ever NASCAR Cup start. So, 93 was his first full-time season, and by 95, he was like Dale Earnhardt's biggest rival. So this is regarded as one of the most historic races in all of NASCAR history.
So, and not to minimize what you just said, but to summarize, the Hooters 500 was a three-way.
Yes, it was. Yes.
But so this is like the sort of this is a big shift in like the sort of mainstream appeal of NASCAR. Is that fair to say? Like this was kind of like a key event of where like the sort of next generation of like big guys came out, because like even I know who Jeff Gordon is.
Yeah, I mean it was just the fact that it was Richard Petty retiring in Jeff Gordon's first race. Like right there is such a big generational shift. I mean, really, I would say culturally, Days of Thunder was one of the things that kicked it off. By the time that movie came out, racing was starting to get pretty popular, but still, it was still a Southern thing. But when Days of Thunder came out, that's when it became a little more of a nationwide phenomenon. And I know that movie, it gets kind of panned as more or less being Days of Thunder or Top Gun with race cars, which it kind of is. But it is a good movie and a fun movie. And it's as far as NASCAR movies go, it's still widely regarded as the best of all time. And it is something that we keep hearing rumors about Tom Cruise potentially doing a second one. I hope it happens. If it does, I am going to do everything in my power to either to be try to get some sort of role, or even if it's just like an extra or something. Like I'm going to do everything I can to be in that.
So listeners, if you hear anything, let us know. I feel like there was a big hit song from the soundtrack. That's what I'm looking up right now, and I don't.
There wasn't. It was all just old songs. The actual soundtrack itself, I don't know if it won or was at least nominated for an Oscar, but the soundtrack itself was pretty good. But it was Hans Zimmer composed it.
I remember seeing this anytime because our soundtrack sections is like what I would always go to in the vinyl at every store. And in the Boston area, they always had this thing called Nocturna. I don't know why, but it was like a disco vampire movie, and the movie's sort of lost, but there's like 700,000 copies of this soundtrack everywhere, and it was at every single used store. And the Days of Thunder soundtrack. So I was like, there must have been a huge song in this. Everyone bought it, but I'm looking at it. Maybe the Maria McKee song was big.
No, that wasn't. I would say the most recognizable song is "Give Me Some Lovin'," but on the actual soundtrack, for whatever reason, they use a live version. I don't know if they couldn't get the rights to the recorded version, but yeah, it's strange.
Yeah, there's a cover of "Knocking on Heaven's Door" by Guns N' Roses, which I think was on one of the Use Your Illusions also. Yeah, then randomly, it's a Billy Idol song that no one cared about, and an Andre Simone song, which is kind of a strange thing, but I might just be confusing Days of Thunder and Cocktail. That happens. To me, they're the same movie, which you could probably do a pretty cool mashup edit of.
Probably could, yeah.
So you distinctly remember watching this, or is this something you revisited later in life because it was legendary?
I definitely watched a little of it as a kid. I would say I didn't really start watching NASCAR a ton until 93, 94. Prior to that, it was just kind of bits and pieces here and there, but I was a fan. And again, my family and stuff, we would always watch the Daytona 500 and at family gatherings and stuff, if it was a Sunday, we'd always have the race on. So this was right when I was starting to become like a full-time fan for sure.
Have you ever driven in a NASCAR car?
Not a stock car. A couple years ago, my local dirt track, there's a few different people or companies that they'll tour around with race cars and you can go and drive them. So I did that at the dirt track. I haven't done that with a stock car yet, although I plan on doing it at some point. And actually this year, I'm getting into go-kart racing, which is a very inexpensive, easy way to do it. The one I have, it's almost like working on a bike. Like I'm a bike mechanic as one of my jobs, and this thing is all just nuts and bolts and very easy to work on. So it's affordable, and it'll go 80 miles an hour, and I'll probably hurt myself.
That sounds terrifying, but fun.
Yeah.
There's before we get to the primetime too, there on page 41 of the PDF, there's a full page ad for Eyewitness Video that night. And I don't know if you've seen it, but this is an all-new 2-hour episode. Amazing videos of a terrified family trapped on a lake in the path of a raging tornado. Plus, a savage prison riot photographed from just inches away. A dramatic fire on a bridge and other amazing real dramas videotaped as they happen. But the screenshots from the prison break, I would bet good money on that being Roush and Rick Rude.
It does look a bit like him. It's definitely not. Like as someone who knows enough about wrestling, that is not him. But I can see the resemblance for sure.
I don't think he went to prison, but if he did, I could see him staging a break. Like, there's your movie.
Now he did not have any legal problems that I can remember now, so he was not in prison.
I want to see. I think he's dead, isn't he? Dead?
He's dead. Yeah.
But man, if he was, because all the wrestlers were trying to have film careers. If there was like a Prison Break movie starring Ravishing Rick Rude, but like as himself, that would be amazing. Somehow the custom tights fit in with how they got out of jail. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna write this with with CG. We can make it happen. So what are you doing that night?
Okay, so this one kind of starts a little before prime time, but on TNN there is the Slick 50 Sprint Car World Series, which coincidentally enough, we watched this exact episode on my podcast a few episodes ago, episode 96 of our show. This was so sprint cars, if you don't know what they are, they're these very lightweight, little tiny caged open wheel cars with these big wings on them for aerodynamic purposes. And this was a dirt track in Arizona. And it was a pretty fun race. I would say the highlight of me watching this was there is a segment where they go to some local bar and they race on motorized bar stools, which, 30 years later, liability issues would not allow this to happen. But it's very funny because it's drivers and like TV personalities driving these things and they're falling off of them and stuff.
Like, do they have like a seatbelt or anything?
Nope, not at all. It's just a bar stool with like an electric motor underneath that goes like 20, 30 miles an hour, something like that. And yeah, it's a pretty funny little clip for sure.
No, this is the same day. There was the Hooters 500 and the Slick 50.
Yep.
Do all of these events sound vaguely sexual?
I can see where you're coming from with that for sure.
It's just it's not just a weird weekend. Like, this is kind of a standard.
It happens a lot. To this day, there's still a lot of weird sponsors like that, and including in 2018, Roseanne, the TV show, sponsored a race.
Oh, the return.
Yeah, there was a Roseanne 300. I have not been able to find a shirt or anything from this event, but it exists. It was out.
My God, I've never been to a Hooters, and now it's too late because they're all out of business.
Yeah, you're not missing.
No, I didn't think so.
No.
So the Jackson airs that night as well. So you're watching that before primetime. Well,
it airs from 6 to 7:30, so it would bleed right into prime time. Mm-hmm. At 7:30, I would be watching The Real World though, for sure.
Yeah,
I love The Real World.
This is the first season, I believe, 92.
Was it? I thought 90 was the first.
No,
season.
It was later than you think.
Okay.
Let me see if it tells us which one it is, because they were filming the San Francisco one while the New York one was airing.
Okay.
Or no, they were filming San Francisco while LA was airing.
Ah, okay.
So
yeah, during prime COVID time, I think it was
Paramount.
Pluto.
It was Paramount, I think. The reunions.
No. Whichever of the free streaming platforms, I think it's Pluto, would air on their MTV channel the first like 3 or 4 seasons of The Real World just on loop. So I was watching those quite a bit during COVID times.
It's still compelling. Like, I think those first few seasons before, people specifically kind of went on the show to be like a certain character were... Yeah,
MTV2 also was looking for those characters, for sure.
Right. They hadn't... The first couple seasons, they hadn't figured out what the formula was, which is kind of why it was great. But yeah, and then Duff was hosting on MTV that night. I think this is... Why can't I find it? What am I looking at here? MTV Sports... Why can't I find The Real World?
I looked. I don't think it's in there.
Oh,
I think it just says Real World.
Yeah, so I think then this might have been LA.
Yeah.
John Brennan, big wrestling fan. Also very right wing. Former guest of the show. Very good friends with The Miz. Is that the guy's name? Some guy that was a wrestler that was in The Real World is now a wrestler.
Oh, The Miz.
Yes.
The Miz is from Cleveland.
Oh, okay.
So we're very familiar with The Miz.
Is his finishing move the Cleveland Rocks?
No, I forget what the hell his move is. It's funny though because his dad has been on MTV on. He was used a couple times in WWE shows. Like there was one point where he because if you ever seen his dad,
No.
like his dad doesn't look anything like him. He looks like a guy who was a rock and roll guy in the 70s or 80s, but just kept his hairstyle the entire time. And he'll show up to like local wrestling events, and everybody will treat him like a celebrity. And
Of course
stuff.
they
It's
will.
very funny.
Of course they will.
He owns a chain of Mr. Hero sub shops in town.
Are they good?
They're fine. Their big thing is like a Roman burger, which is just like a cheeseburger on a sub.
I was going to say it's just like a Greek sandwich that they've renamed. I will say a cheeseburger sub is something I occasionally do crave.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get one every once in a blue moon, but they're not.
What's your go-to sub order?
Italian mix, usually.
Okay. Hots?
Or a club.
Hots?
Yeah.
You gotta get the
I'll do all
hots.
that
Which
stuff.
I learned was apparently a unique New England thing.
Oh, yeah, that's not a thing here at all.
It's Italian sub with hots. That is the most processed food possible. Yeah, my God. And for people who've never had an Italian sub, which I've heard are delicious, I'm not a huge fan. They smell exactly like BO,
Yes, that is fair.
but in a delicious way somehow.
It's not something I eat and then go out in public. That's
No, that's something you keep to yourself. That's I'm going to be in for the evening and enjoy my evening. Monday, what are we doing?
Oh, we didn't.
Oh, we didn't even do Sunday. You did the real world,
well,
and then what job?
So at 8:00, my choices were. I know you're not a fan. I'd probably watch Married with Children, but also there was Donahue's 25th anniversary special. So I'd probably watch a little of that. And then at 8:30 on TNN, more racing stuff. There's a show called The Exciting World of Speed and Beauty, which this was a syndicated show that started off in the 80s and ran up until like the 2000s. But what was weird about it is sometimes you'd see a clip from like the present day, and then sometimes they'd show a clip of something from like 1985. I know we watched an episode on my show one time where there was like a drag racing grandma. She was like in her 70s and drove some old Pontiac or something. And I did find when I was doing research a clip of Bigfoot and Gravedigger on this show from 92. So I'm hoping that's what they would have aired that night.
I just thought of a thing that was amusing to only me, and it's a guy who can't tell the difference between The Undertaker and Gravedigger.
There was I think only a couple times it happened, but somehow they got The Undertaker and Paul Bearer to show up at a couple of Gravedigger shows.
just makes
Like
sense.
there is a photo out there. If you look, you'll see the truck in the background and those two standing under a spotlight in some
It
show.
just makes sense.
And also too, in the 80s, Sergeant Slaughter did some appearances with monster trucks. There's actually a VHS tape called Blood, Sweat, and Gears where there's video footage of Sergeant Slaughter and a bunch of wrestlers doing a tug-of-war with Bigfoot.
I feel like I knew that. Like, Slaughter was one of those guys who was like, yeah, whatever, G.I. Joe, monster trucks, yeah, fine, anything. I won't be on Rockin' Wrestling, but anything else?
It was a weird time period where he was like not in WWF and was like doing G.I. Joe stuff, so he could do whatever he wanted. And I think they've talked about that on TV Guidance Counselor, so that's probably, or not TV Guidance Counselor, VCR Party, so that might
Very
be where you
likely.
heard it.
The Married with Children that night is a stunt episode. So this is Married with Children, the musical. And we have musical guest John Sebastian of The Love and Spoonful, Peter Noon of Hermit's Hermits, Mark Lindsay of Paul Revere and the Raiders, and Robbie Krieger of The Doors, all guest starring in this episode.
Very timely.
Yes, that tells you the age of the people who were watching Married with Children in 1992. What a weird thing. And they turn a first-class ticket to Hawaii into 4 standbys. That doesn't keep them from hobnobbing with in the first-class lounge with Spencer Davis, Richie Havens, Robbie Krieger, Mark Lindsay, and Peter Noon. On the one-page ad, they don't mention Richie Havens or Spencer Davis, and those are the two that I would feel like were more notable than everyone they named. That's just me.
weird.
Is that everything on Sunday?
Yeah.
Monday, what are we doing?
I think at 7, I was going to go with MTV's Week in Rock.
Yeah, you had to. Love it.
Yeah. I that's another show that when I find it on YouTube or whatever, I'll always watch them.
There's shockingly not enough of those on YouTube.
No, I know some of that stuff pops up on like archive.org, and I'm not great at using that site, but I know that's one of the places it pops up.
I love MTV News, and when I go back and rewatch it, I feel like it holds up. Like,
yeah, it does.
It's well done. It's not like hard journalism or anything, but they're like doing interesting takes on stories. It's like well put together. They have a point of view. It's not super ass kissy. But not just like, let's make controversy for the sake of it. It's sort of refreshing and a little bit sad when I watch it now, because I'm like, look how far we've fallen. But it's pretty good. Oh, did you see the full page ad for this made-for-TV movie starring Beverly D'Angelo?
No, I skipped past that. What's that all about?
This is based on a true story. Beverly D'Angelo in A Child Lost Forever. She went looking for the son she was forced to give away, discovered a horrible secret, and fought for the justice her long-lost son never had. That sounds like something I would never want to watch.
No, definitely not.
Why would someone be like, yeah, that sounds good? That just sounds incredibly depressing.
Yeah, I don't know.
And boring.
I mean, I feel like a lot of like those made-for-TV movies were like that, though.
But like usually there was something salacious. Like it would be like,
yeah,
you know, and then she went for revenge, or like at least like a court trial or something. This just sounds like a bunch of sad stuff. But some people are into that. So what are you doing after MTV News?
Let's see here. There was another racing thing, the Ultimate 4x4 Adventure on ESPN at 8 o'clock. This was a like Baja-style desert race filmed in Guyana. So there was that, and then there was also, I think, WWF Superstars on USA. So I'd probably be flipping back.
Are 4x4s like those four-wheelers? Like they're like...
No, they're just off-road trucks.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's all they are.
Gotcha. Did the Cannonball Run, was that a real thing?
Oh yeah, it's a real thing in the sense that it happens, and still to this day people will do it, but it's one of those things that's very low key, because you can go on YouTube now and you'll see people that they'll set speed records of driving across country, but they have to do it like in the middle of the night, and they have 16 different radar detectors, and they've got extra fuel cells and all this stuff in the car. It's very calculated. And only a few people attempt it, but it is something that does still happen.
That sounds so not fun. It's like they've taken the fun out of it. It's like Moneyball, like Gumball 500. That's now like not as interesting.
Well, it's interesting after the fact, but I mean, it's one of those things that it's just such a huge risk to do, you know? Like, I forget what some of the average speeds, but I mean, we're talking 120, 130.
On regular,
minimum.
like, consumer roads.
Yeah.
I remember, I think it's Cy Richardson from Repo Man. He used to love going on road trips. I forget who told me this story, but he had like an old Cadillac, and he had the entire trunk made into a gas tank.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Which sounds super dangerous.
It definitely is, but it's how you can do that. It's less stops. Like, that's part of it. And going back to peeing in the car, like, they got to figure that stuff out too.
If somehow they could fuel the car with pee, it
would make things a lot easier, for sure.
I mean, they could desalinate that stuff. I think if get on it, science. Then what are you doing?
Let's see. So that was it. That covers Monday. So now we're on to Tuesday. Yeah. Tuesday at 7 o'clock, Back to the Future is on. So definitely watching the first hour of that. 100%.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Then at 8, it is the debut of The Lunchbox on Roseanne. I love Roseanne. I would absolutely be watching that 100%. And then there's not many options at 8:30, so I would probably go with Coach, which was definitely not a show I watched when it first came out. I think as I got a little bit older, I maybe enjoyed it a bit more. My note was going to be, though, that Craig T. Nelson, he was into sports car racing too, and at one point I had, I had a T-shirt from his race team signed by him. I know I sold it, but I did have that memento at one point.
Did that garner a premium price?
Not really. Honestly, autographed T-shirts tend to sell at a little bit lower price, unless it's somebody like Dale Earnhardt or somebody that's passed. Nobody wants to wear an autographed T-shirt.
Right, it doesn't display that great. I have an autographed Blue Demon shirt.
Oh, the wrestler? That's
it's
awesome.
a cool shirt because it's like it's a blue shirt with like the silvery mask parts on the shirt, and it's signed. I have it in like a frame, but it's like it's cool, but it's hard to display it well.
Yeah, I have tons of T-shirts that like would be cool to display, but you got to put them in a frame or shadow box them. That's just so much work.
I do have my original screen worn Revenge of the Nerds Tri-Lambs shirt in a frame.
Oh, that's cool. That's something you want to frame.
And then I have this autographed Just the 10 of Us Bill Kirkenbauer cast shirt in a frame.
Oh, nice.
But it's not evident that it's a T-shirt. That's the thing. Like, you're just like, okay, that's a signed thing.
Yeah.
You passed up Rescue 911, which has an Ohio connection in this episode.
It's somehow I missed that. I watched it a little bit as a kid, but I don't think when I was younger I understood that it was like dramatizations. Whereas now I go back and watch it and it's way funnier, for sure. But I totally missed it. I probably would have watched
this. This is segments on female rescuers, featuring a woman in Utah menaced by an intruder, a youngster in California who took action when her sister's clothes caught fire, a woman who aided a carpenter hurt on the job, and an Ohio girl who led the effort to save her toddler brother. That's packed to gills.
Yeah. For sure.
There's another made-for-TV movie on this night, and it's the Eileen Wuornos story. So this is the female serial killer that Charlize Theron played in that movie that I can't think of the name of, but she got...
I know what you're talking about.
For an Oscar for it. So it's the same story, but playing Eileen Wuornos is Jean Smart.
Interesting.
And it's called Overkill. America's most infamous serial killers had all been men until now. And I'm just like, how many characters are there in the world that have been played by both Jean Smart and Charlize Theron? I think it's just the one.
Gotta be. Yeah, just the one for sure.
There's also on Invention that night, which was a Discovery Channel show. Mm-hmm. It's all about the video toaster.
Wow.
Amazing.
What did it have a TV screen on it or something? Like,
so the video toaster was not a toaster. It was sort of the first somewhat prosumer digital editor software computer.
Oh, okay.
And so it did like every cable access channel. If they got a budget, they're like, we're going to buy a video toaster. And there's like 10 very specific video toaster like wipes that there are. Like there's one with the silhouette of like a naked girl, and she like spins around and like pulls the shade down. And like the video toaster was like it's such a nerdy specific, like if you were involved in cable access in the early 90s, the video toaster was like the height of luxury and technology.
Interesting.
So I'm curious about this one.
Definitely not my wheelhouse at all.
Also, I'm looking at the listing for the Overkill, the Eileen Wuornos story, which number one, this is 1992, and her crimes were in 90 and 91. So this is like pretty contemporaneously with that. But playing the character of Bruce Munster is Brian James, who people may know from Blade Runner and a million other things. He's a very noted character actor. But that's very weird to see him in this. And the Lanford Lunchbox, which I've still to this day never had a loose meat sandwich. I'm curious what that is.
I think it's just like kind of a sloppy Joe variation, maybe. That's what I'm assuming.
Yeah, fair enough.
I feel like in the Midwest, though, I have seen those somewhere.
Oh yeah, Tom and Roseanne, they opened an actual loose meat sandwich restaurant in Autumna, Iowa, where Tom's from.
Oh,
I think it might even still be open. And this is, of course, when Tracy Lords got introduced to the cast later this season as someone who worked in the store. I'm a big fan of Lanford Lunchbox. Is that everything on Tuesday?
Yeah, that's everything Tuesday.
Wednesday, what are we doing?
Really only two choices for me. There's WCW Wrestling on TBS, and I'd be flipping back and forth between that and It All Started with a Mouse on Disney, which was a documentary on like Disney Studios. which I like documentaries, and that sounds interesting. So I'd probably want to check that out.
Yeah, I'm not even a big Disney guy, and I remember watching that because I'm
same.
like old Hollywood animation. Like this is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
There's an ad for a thing on PBS, and the ad makes it look way better than it must be. And it's like these two eyes in like a cavern with stalactites and stalagmites, and it says, tonight on PBS, who dares unearth the secrets of the underworld? Mysteries Underground, a new National Geographic special. And I haven't looked at the actual description, but there's no way this thing is as good as it sounds like there.
No, I've been to caves and stuff like that, and yeah, they're interesting, but they're not exciting.
It says the 18th season begins by exploring mysteries underground, subterranean landscapes that narrator Richard Kiley says are filled with, quote, bizarre and fantastic treasures, included mineral formations in New Mexico, an ice cave in the Austrian Alps, an underwater tunnel off the coast of France. Also, a reenactment of an exploration of Kentucky's Mammoth Cave, scene of a 1925 Kentucky caving accident that, quote, became a carnival.
I mean, how can you not be captivated by that?
Like this was a case of overpromise, underdeliver. Like I feel like they got this ad back and they were like, guys, this ad might be too good to run. Like, we're gonna make promises to people that we just can't keep. Mm-hmm. But it's a cool ad. That would be a good T-shirt. That ad. It looks like a indie metal band from 1985 who like a Dungeons and Dragons-y metal band.
Yeah, you add a little color to that, and it would be a great album cover for sure.
Yeah, you're like, oh, you heard Secrets of the Underworld by Who Dares? Who Dares on Earth? Got a band called Who Dares on Earth, and their album Secrets of the Underworld. I'd listen to that. All right, then what are you doing?
Well, that's Wednesday.
Yep.
That pretty much takes up all of prime time for me.
So Thursday, what do you got?
Thursday, so at 7, The Simpsons. It's the Mr. Plow episode. That's it. Don't need to watch anything else for sure. After that, first I was going to go with Martin because I did watch that as a kid, but then I saw on NBC A Different World had Criss Cross as a guest star. So I would, as someone who listened to Criss Cross at age 9, that's what I'd be watching.
So Criss Cross this week, they got their Sega CD interactive video. They're guest starring on A Different World. It's Criss Cross's world this week in November 92. Mm-hmm. Did you ever wear your clothes backwards?
I think I tried that once, and you can't do that, man. It feels so weird.
It's not doable.
Like, no, not at all.
What a ridiculous gimmick.
I mean, it worked.
It did.
And they're one of those groups that, they were obviously stars as a kid, and that's going to fade out once you're hit preteens. But I know they were going to do Reunion or something a few years ago, and then one of them died.
Yeah.
Like, he OD'd and died, like, right when it was happening.
I remember their second record, like, after they'd gone through puberty and they seemed like adults, and it was, like, more like gangster rap, and people were like, what the hell's this?
Yeah, the kid appeal is gone. This isn't going to work.
The Mr. Plow episode is one of the best Simpsons episodes ever, and it has
100%.
like a 3/4 page ad that's just a fantastic piece of art. Yeah, and it's home we're going. My prices are so low, you think I have brain damage. Yeah, this one's great. Then we're
8 o'clock. Even though I didn't watch then, I've definitely grown to appreciate it now. I'd be watching Cheers.
Yep, final season
for sure. And then at 8:30, I went with either This Old House, which was a show that I know you've talked about, and my dad and I watched that sometimes. But when we watched it, it was on PBS. Like, I remember watching it on Saturday nights. And my dad, when we were kids, like, he built houses for a while. Like, he built the 2 houses that I grew up in. So yeah, that was. He definitely was interested in that. So there was that. And then there was also a show called Street Stories, which seemed intriguing. I'm trying to look and see what channel that was on.
Street Stories. So what are we looking at? 8 o'clock. I love This Old House. Yeah, it was on PBS. It sort of later became syndicated, like on weekends and stuff and other stations. I do love like Pluto and Tubi and all those. They have a dedicated This Old House channel. which is like one of my go-tos if I just like I need to just disassociate. I'll like throw that on. What is the one where you were saying there?
Street Stories was on channels 10 and 11, so CBS. I think it was like a some sort of like news story show, something like that.
Yeah, it looks like a news magazine. And then Silk Stockings is on after that, which is hilarious. This is before it went to the USA Network.
See, I didn't know it wasn't. I thought it was always a USA show.
No,
I didn't realize that.
USA Network had, when they were trying to do original programming, they didn't want to jump in just like, with brand new original programming. So they bought a bunch of shows that were on networks that had been canceled, and they made new episodes.
Okay.
So Silk Stockings was one of them. The Hitchhiker was another one. The new Alfred Hitchcock Presents was another one. But NBC at this time, 91, 90, they tried to like really sex up their channel, and they had this promotion where their 10 o'clock shows were like supposed to be like a little bit sexy, and the whole campaign was like NBC late night. It's too hot to sleep. And it was like, the ads are hilarious. If you go on YouTube and look at them, it's all like people rubbing ice cubes on their bodies and stuff. And it was Silk Stockings, Nick Knight, which was Forever Knight, the vampire cop show, Midnight Caller, and I think one other show. And it was just like, some of those are good shows. Midnight Caller is great, but it was like, this doesn't work. I don't know what you guys are thinking here. Again, it was an overpromise, underdeliver on that one for sure. Like if people were tuning into Silk Stockings on NBC to see something a little sexy, they were going to be very disappointed. Then where are we? Friday night, final night of the week?
Friday, yep. So even though I know it was TGIF, at 7 o'clock, the Week in Rock was on, so I would definitely be watching that. And then I'd follow it up with Step by Step. I was a Step by Step fan. I know that show is very horny.
Yes.
I didn't get that at the time, but I definitely understand it now for sure. But yeah, Step by Step would be the show.
I watched it every week. This is JT is mystified. Cool Cody abstains from sex and plans to continue until he meets the girl of his dreams. That seems shocking to me as a plot. Because by the nature of saying he abstains and he plans to continue, they're like, Cody's banging, which is weird.
Wait, was Cody like the cool cousin that lived in the van? I'm trying to remember all
Sasha
the
Mitchell.
Okay, yeah.
He was the one who was in the Kickboxer movies later.
Yep.
But I'm like, this is a family children's show, and it was kind of it was horny with the parents, but they would at least try to like sort of make it not that obvious, and this one, like, straight up, that's the friggin' plot. That's shocking to me.
Yeah, that is weird.
Damn. Then what are you doing?
8 o'clock, dinosaurs. Absolutely. Like, I love dinosaurs. I love Jim Henson. I can't remember what episode it was, but I watched all those then, so I would have watched
This is the Parent Patrol one, if you remember that one.
That I don't.
So it's Earl believes he's a fine father figure, but parental guidance in the form of a menacing member of the Parent Patrol suggests otherwise when Earl's license to parent is revoked.
See, that sounds like dystopian enough to be something that could be happening today somewhere.
Pretty much every episode of Dinosaurs falls under that category, to be honest with you.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That was such a great final, like, screw you guys, that Henson got in there, which is amazing. Sightings is also on, which is the unsolved mysteries for people who don't like rapists and murderers. And this is investigations travel to Russia to open declassified documents containing UFO research. Also, an examination in London of the new evidence in the Jack the Ripper murders, 1992.
Wow. There was another thing on at 8 o'clock that I saw that I was somewhat interested in on Lifetime, a movie called The Last Prostitute.
Yep.
Yeah, that I'm interested to see that now, to be honest.
So this stars Will Wheaton.
Yeah.
And it is two teens try to become men by doing business with, quote, the world's greatest hooker, played by Sonia Braga. They give it 1 star, which seems probably right.
Well, they also gave Blue Velvet 2 stars.
That's
if
true.
that tells you anything.
That's true.
So.
And Perry Mason, the case of the ruthless reporter, gets 2 stars. And Ben-Hur, 4 stars. So that shows you kind of where that's just on this page alone. Yeah, The Last Prostitute, made for cable. This is a made for Lifetime movie. I've never heard Will Wheaton talk about this movie. It's on at the same time as Future Kick, starring Don the Dragon Wilson on the Movie Channel, which they also gave 1 star. So that's kind of the realm we're putting this in. But maybe I'll hunt that down and check out The Last Prostitute. I don't know why it's last too. Like World's Greatest and Last are very different things.
Yeah, there has to be some connection there. Maybe like when I don't know. Maybe it's this prostitute meeting the kids and ending her career. I don't know. That's the only connection.
Many
I can
others,
kind of
and this is the final boss prostitute.
Yeah.
I don't get it either. But that's a good call.
Mm-hmm. There was one other show I just wanted to briefly mention that I don't remember at all, but Camp Wilder. Reading the synopsis, it kind of seems like if they made Party of Five a comedy instead of a drama.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
AJ Langer is in this episode, who people would know later from My So-Called Life. Jerry O'Connell was one of the main guys in this show. It was not a bad family sitcom. It was, I think, 2 seasons. It might have been a mid-season replacement the previous year, so it was kind of like a season and a half. But it wasn't bad. It was kind of in the TGIF sort of vein. It was on against Bob, which is Bob Newhart's 3rd sitcom that kind of failed. But this episode of Bob is really fun. This one, because we're in November, this one's all about the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And the premise of Bob was Bob Newhart's basically Jack Kirby. And he was a comics artist in the 60s who, wasn't getting any work, worked for greeting card companies. And now that comics were big again, they had him come back to comics and do his character Mad Dog and all this kind of stuff. So this episode, his character Mad Dog is getting a balloon in the Macy's parade. And Stephen Wright is in this episode.
What is he doing?
He's playing I think he's like the guy who's in charge of the balloons, if I'm remembering correctly.
I was going to say that kind of makes sense. His deadpan delivery as the guy who actually like flies the balloon makes
I remember
sense.
Really liking this episode. I think I'll have to put it in the Thanksgiving rotation this year because there's a lot of episodes of just regular Newhart I have in there. But the show was like just okay, but I feel like this was a standout episode if I'm remembering correctly.
I mean, just having Stephen Wright in there is worth at least checking
Absolutely.
it out.
Macy's Parade, balloons, and Stephen Wright sold. Anything else on Friday?
Nah, I think that's pretty much it as far as stuff that I saw that was interesting.
So let me go back, because as you know, TV Guide is not just informative. It has opinions, and it cheers and it jeers. So to finish up here, let's do the cheers and jeers of this week, November 1992. This is a very cheer-heavy week. I'm actually surprised.
Yeah, I got my notes here for that. The first cheers was cheers to the death of bad shows.
Yeah, which is like, is that a cheers?
I mean, it's a cheer for somebody, I guess, not having to sit through all that garbage, but people losing jobs and all that stuff.
It's so weird when they would frame jeers as cheers. Like, it's like their editor was like, guys, this is too negative. And they're like, make that jeer a cheer. But it's the same content. So they're like, cheers to you, the viewers, who ultimately decide which shows stay and which shows go every new season. Already a half dozen fall entries have deservedly bitten the dust thanks to your overwhelming lack of interest. Among the not so dearly departed, The Round Table, NBC's formulaic entry into the Youth Ensemble show sweepstakes, Franny's Turn, CBS's sitcom about a 40-something feminist seamstress, a big new what? I don't even know what that means. Laurel Hill, ABC's feeble attempt to revive the dramedy, a concept that died a distinguished death with Hooperman when it went off the air in 1989. Angel Street, CBS attempt to revive the gal pal cop concept, officially on hiatus, but we know what that means. And last but not least, Final Appeal and What Happened, NBC's completely unnecessary entries in the already bloated reality show genre.
Well, they think it's bloated in 92. Just wait.
Oh, yeah. Like, they're so wrong with the stuff. Like, the dramedy died in 1989. This reality show is too bloated. Like, I can't think. I don't remember a lot of these shows. I do remember Angel Street, which actually wasn't that bad. But they are so off the mark with what people will watch later on this one. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Then we get an official jeer, our only jeer.
This is a raunchy one.
It is. Jeers and a shrug of disbelief to former Cheers barmaid Shelley Long and L.A. lawyer. I know it's lawyer, but they're trying to call him a lawyer because it's L.A. law. Corbin Burnson for being remotely involved in the most outrageous promotional stunt of, yes, we'll say it, all time. It's bad enough that the two agreed to star in Frozen Assets, a tasteless feature film about a sperm bank. But how did they ever get involved in a sperm donation contest? Highest sperm count wins a trip to Mexico, conducted at an actual LA depository to hype the film's opening. Here's hoping we can bank on both of them to pick better film projects in the future. So this was literally... come jack off and you'll win a trip to promote a movie.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions about this. I'm assuming that they mean the actual sperm count in the sample and not like how much you produce.
Oh, see, I thought you were going to go like number of times.
Well, it could have been that too. It could have been a race to produce. Who knows? I mean, but just having a contest at a sperm donation center is absolutely batshit
There are
insane.
so many guardrails along the way that should have kept this from happening. Like when someone pitched this in the promotional office, everyone should have been like, I don't think so. But the fact that it went far enough to actually happen is completely insane.
I would be very curious to know what they were paid for that, because it had to have been a lot to agree to do that.
Like Shelley Long and Corbin Burnson are literally like, show us your sperm.
Yeah.
And then I don't know why you win a trip to Mexico. Like, what does that have to do with it?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, you got to go, relax and rejuvenate yourself after donating, I suppose.
Like, this guy has a really high sperm count. He deserves some time in Mexico. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I give that a jeer as well, but it's almost so egregious, it's sort of impressive. So, like, maybe it's cheer. Then we get cheers to Fox's Sunday night lineup. Finally, there are 2 nights a week when you don't even have to lay a finger on the remote to enjoy an evening of seamless laughs. For several years, CBS has had a vice grip on Monday nights, with this season's back-to-back mix of such returning favorites as Murphy Brown and Northern Exposure, and such top-notch newcomers as Love and War being the best yet. Now Fox has followed suit, fine-tuning its Sunday night schedule to perfection and delivering 3 hours of irreverent levity within Living Color, Rock, Married with Children, Herman's Head, Flying Blind, and Whoops.
Those last two I don't remember at all.
It's hilarious to me that their first cheer is like, hey, go fuck yourself, these shows. And there's no way that a human being like wrote this cheer. This is 100% Fox paid them like a PR person having this. So Whoops is infamously one of the worst television shows of all time. Whoops is a post-nuclear Holocaust comedy sitcom.
Wow.
So the whoops is, whoops, we blew up the world. So it's this like group of people living in a cabin in a post-apocalyptic world.
Interesting. So it is a wild premise for a show, but yeah, I don't know how you actually make that work.
It's not that well done. Like the Thanksgiving episode, there's like a giant mutant turkey. The Christmas episode, there's actual Santa Claus, and he's played by Stuart Penkin, who's Earl Sinclair on Dinosaurs. And it turns out that he locked Mrs. Claus out of the bomb shelter, and she died in the war, and he's got like PTSD, and it's like all playful. It is shockingly, like, and infamously bad. Like, everyone was like, whoops, what are they thinking? What the hell is this? So the fact that they're like, and this fine comedy, like, whoops.
Well, Fox did, 20 something years later, kind of make that concept work in a different way with Last Man on Earth.
Yeah, this is very different though.
Yeah, which it's a true tragedy that show got canceled right before COVID started.
Yeah, I mean, they got like 3
it's
seasons
insane.
though, didn't they?
I think it was 4 or 5, but I loved that show. Like, and of course, like the show was more or less about COVID, and then it gets canceled. And we all get COVID.
I mean, I blame them.
Yeah.
But it's so like in Living Color was super lazy at this time. I didn't mention it, but like in the Sunday night listing, there's a huge half-page ad for Handyman.
I have gone back and watched a little Living Color over the years, and it does not.
No, and the handyman's like, "Hey, did you steal my parking space?" It's like so not funny, and just because it's so lazy and stupid and downpunch, like it's just bad. Rock was a great show.
Yeah, I watched a little of that, and I remember their big thing was they did a lot of live episodes.
Yes, because they had all these theater actors. Yeah, Rock was great. Herman's Head was really funny. Flying Blind starred Taya Leone, and I can't remember the main guy's name, but he's the main character, the guy who plays the main character in How I Got Into College. Not Casey Semetsko, I forget the guy's name, but Taya Leone was great. That she played this like kind of crazy like sex pot lady who was infatuated with this total dork loser nerd guy. And it didn't really sustain itself as a premise for a sitcom, but it was actually pretty decent. But Whoops, my God. Yeah. I mean, I enjoy watching Whoops because it's just like, I can't believe this got on the air. Like this seems like a SNL parody of a sitcom.
Yeah.
But man. And then finally, cheers to Ray Walston for overcoming his TV alienation. Best known for the title role in the 60s TV series My Favorite Martian, Walston later came to regret having done the show, saying it had hurt his career by forever typecasting him. But Walston has obviously come to terms with his otherworldly notoriety, turning up on TV in several parts that prove he's a good sport. As Boothby, the Starfleet Academy gardener on Star Trek Next Generation, as Ned, an Interstellar Explorer on NBC's Erie, Indiana, and as Judge Bone on CBS's Picket Fences, who attended...
Judge Bone is a great
Judge Bone
name.
is great. There's a wrestler name for you, right?
Yeah.
Who attended a Halloween party dressed as a Martian. To top it all off, Walston has also won acclaim for his turn as Candy, the elderly ranch hand in the new Of Mice and Men flick. Space, it seems, isn't the final frontier. This is ridiculous to me.
I don't know Ray Walston at all. I was not My Favorite Martian
He's
watcher,
Mr. Hand in Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh, okay.
I feel like everyone knows him from. No one knew My Favorite Martian in 1992. That show is not in syndication. Like, you have to be a billion years old to know Ray Walston from My Favorite Martian in 1992. And I like how they're like, oh, and he said he got typecast, poor guy. And then they proceeded to, like, 2 of the 3 or all 3 of the things they reference are My Favorite Martian reference parts.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Even where he's playing Judge Bone, they make him dress up as My Favorite Martian character. He was on Night Court. Like, Ray Walston's in a ton of other stuff. This is such a weird... I'm shocked. And the fact that they don't even mention Fast Times at Ridgemont High, because he was in the movie and then also played the same character in the Fast Times at Ridgemont High TV series. Poor Ray Walston. They did him dirty here with this one. Yeah. And you know, his co-star on My Favorite Martian was Bill Bixby.
Okay, that name I know.
The Incredible Hulk. Of course. The coolest thing about My Favorite Martian was his antennas were TV antennas.
Okay, now that you're mentioning that, I'm sure I've seen him in that outfit stuff. Like, I have to have seen
it was like Alf, Mork, but like very 50s, you know, like the kind of Mr. Ed kind of thing. Well, that is the week. Thank you for doing this. I'm so glad that you had a chance to sit down and do this. Thank you for purchasing things from me over the years.
Yeah, man. I like I said, I've been a big fan of yours for a while, and I've loved the show, and I'm just glad I got to do it.
No,
so
this
thank
was
you
great.
so much.
Thank you. And I'll put links to your podcast in the show descriptions, and we'll have to do this again sometime. There you go. That's Brian. Can't fault a guy who's been buying Ken Reid releases since the 90s. So weird, but in the best possible way. Again, check out his show, Meet Me in Applebee's, and check out this show next week, because I'll be here for a brand new edition of TV Guidance Counselor.
I can't tell you how many times I've had riders bring their bikes in and there's like crystallized piss in the seat and down tube and stuff, and it's just gross.